Hello everyone and welcome to Music Theory with GUIM. In this exploration of Franz Liszt, we're going to look at one of his art songs for voice and piano. On screen, the title appears in its original German language, but in English it can be translated to Joyful and Woeful. This composition has 3 different published versions and 2 different settings. In this installment, we'll be looking at version 3, which is the second version of the first setting. And of course, before we get into the theory, let's go ahead and take a listen to the excerpt, which contains measures 1 through 15. So we are set in the key of A flat major, and the harmony begins with the 1 chord A flat major. In the second measure, however, we're taken to the parallel minor chord A flat minor. A flat major is the joyful aspect, whereas A flat minor is the woeful aspect, which is a rather obvious correlation considering the whole major is happy and minor is sad. And assuming the translations that I've come across are true to the original intent, when the vocal comes in, the opening lyrics correspond accordingly to each measure, saying joyful and woeful. Following this measure, we proceed to an F-flat German augmented sixth with A-flat in the bass. As a result, we're hearing this augmented sixth above a tonic pedal, but we can also think of it as first inversion depending on how you theorize augmented sixth chords. One of the interesting aspects about the way this chord is voiced is that we are hearing an augmented 11th between A-flat and D. And this can happen even when the chord is in root position, but with A-flat in the bass, the relationship of the augmented 11th is more prominent compared to A-flat being an inner voice or an upper voice. And the augmented 11th is a tritone, and though we normally think of the tritone in a tense setting and that it needs to immediately resolve, it can also be presented in this more ambiguous atmosphere, or in one that subdues the tension, and that's what I'm hearing here. And this is especially so with the chord being arpeggiated rather than hearing all of the notes simultaneously. So we're hearing this subdued tension unfold rather than be immediately sounding all at once. And when I later looked up translations, it was interesting to see that the lyrics that occur here can be translated to roughly thoughtful or thoughtfully with care. And this coincides with that sort of reflective sound that I was getting from this particular chord. Anyways, I don't know German, so take this interpretation loosely. Moving forward, we then have E flat 7, the 5-7 with the tonic pedal continuing. So we keep A flat in the bass, but we resolve the augmented 6th chord as expected to a 5 chord. However, unlike the typical resolution to a cadential 6-4 to avoid parallel fifths created by the German variant before proceeding to the 5 chord as a triad, we're hearing a direct resolution with no cadential 6-4 preceding, and we're hearing the 5 chord voiced as a dominant 7th rather than a triad. Additionally, the augmented 6th D and the bass tone F flat have been doubled. The octave of F flats resolve in parallel motion to E flat. The octave of D, however, resolves in contrary motion. The lowest D resolves upward to E flat, whereas the highest D resolves downward to D flat. And this means that in one octave, we're hearing the resolution of the augmented 6th interval resolve as usual to an octave, but we're also hearing the resolution of a diminished 10th to a major 9th. Following this measure, the vocal melody enters. At this point, we would hear the text that corresponds to the joyful, woeful, and thoughtful comments, but I have omitted the text from the sheet music since we will not deeply delve into its correlation with the music and its safe space. Nevertheless, the vocal melody performs nearly the same melody the piano previously played, and we essentially get the same harmony, only it has been voiced a bit differently. One of the most notable differences is that we no longer have the doubling of the augmented 6th interval, and the augmented 6th that remains resolves to a minor 7th rather than an octave, since we see D move downwards to D flat. Another difference worth noting is that we hear B, the sharp 5 of E flat 7 at the end of the phrase. It is chromatically approaching the third of the forthcoming harmony, A flat major, which is a sharp 2 to 3 resolution. This tension is initially resolved by the vocal melody and then later reinforced by the piano sounding C in the same register on beat 3. Following this A flat major, we have yet again A flat minor. Measures 3 and 4 of this phrase, however, change the harmony to E minor over G and B major over F sharp. At first, this looks like E flat minor over G and B major over F sharp are a sort of minor sharp 5-6 and sharp 2-6-4 chords. And this is quite strange to see, but if we look forward, we see that a key signature change to B major is inbound, so we can think of the current harmony inharmonically as a minor 4-6 to 1-6-4. And though a minor 4-6 to 1-6-4 isn't that strange, it is a bit peculiar to see a modulation to a sharp 2 key center, especially since this modulation only lasts for the next few measures before reverting back to the A-flat key signature. As a result, I then consider the inharmonic spelling of these last two chords. Upon doing so, E minor over G becomes F flat minor over A double flat, and B major over F sharp becomes C flat major over G flat. This change in spelling clearly states numerous factors. Firstly, it shows us that we're continuing to a harmony with the same root as before, F flat. Secondly, it assists us in recognizing the parallel nature of the triadic qualities, and that we were hearing a major triad in the preceding German augmented sixth, and now we are hearing a minor triad. And you can see this stated plainly in the melody, which originally arpeggiated the F flat major triad and now arpeggiates the minor triad. And because of this change in spelling, we now have a differing relationship to A flat. F flat minor is a minor flat 6 chord, which is a double chromatic mediant to the underlying A flat major tonality and a chromatic mediant in relation to the adjacent A flat minor harmony. And C flat major is now the flat 3 chord rather than the sharp 2 chord. In relation to A flat major, this is an upward chromatic mediant, but in relation to A flat minor, this is a diatonic chord. In my opinion, this relationship makes more sense because C flat major is the relative major of the parallel minor, or in other words, A flat major's parallel minor is A flat minor. The relative major of A flat minor is C flat major. As a result, we can connect the harmonies of A flat major and C flat major with very little work. And since we have only respelled the chords inharmonically, the relationship amongst these chords will remain unchanged. So if we think of these chords relative to C flat major, we still have a minor 4-6 and a 1-6-4. And rather than go through the process of analyzing and then respelling everything, we're going to analyze the final three measures inharmonically. So we start off with F flat minor, only this time it's in root position, which changes it from a 4-6 to just a minor 4. And if you recall the bass notes of the previous two harmonies, we had F flat minor over A double flat and then C flat major over G flat. So with F flat now occurring, we have a descending bass line by stepwise motion. On beat 4, it sounds the major 6th D flat. You can choose to think of this as an F flat minor add 6 if you prefer, but I'm just going to leave it as F flat minor. And following F flat minor, we then hear C flat major, the 1 chord, which is now also in root position. And during these triplet figures at the end, we hear C flat major become G flat 7 over C flat, which is the 5-7. In relation to A flat major, this would be the flat 7 chord, which is a common borrowed harmony in the major tonality. But had we chosen to keep the harmony as written in the score, we would see F sharp 7, which is a sharp 6 chord in relation to A flat major. The flat 7 relationship seems to be quite a bit more logical to me. But with all this said, you can of course choose to think of the harmony however you wish, but I personally find C flat major to offer more insight than B major. The relationship of these final chords amongst themselves remains unchanged, sure, but it's the relationship of A flat to C flat that is of importance. This is especially so with chromatic mediant relationships being very common during the Romantic period, and Liszt himself makes use of them on numerous occasions. Anyways, this is all we're going to cover for this installment. In the future, we'll look into how this tune ventures forth into augmented harmonies, but in the meantime, let's go back to the excerpt now that it's been harmonically analyzed, and then we'll wrap up. Make note that this playthrough will now show the inharmonic spelling rather than the original spellings found in this score, linked in the description below. Alright, so what I suggest is taking a look at how this harmony weaves in and out of the A flat major and minor tonalities. It initially leaves directly into the parallel minor by juxtaposing A flat major and A flat minor. It then remains more so in the minor mode with the augmented 6th chord sounding the minor 3rd and 6th scale degrees before returning to a pivotal point with E flat 7. In the latter harmonies, however, we take a turn towards the minor mode more deeply by highlighting its own relative major. Another thing to keep in mind is that you now have an example of the minor 4 to major 1 progression being used chromatically. Using the minor 4 to a major 1 in your primary key is a common technique, but it's quite rare to see it used as a resolution to a secondary key. Anyways, should you happen to have any questions or thoughts regarding this content, feel free to leave a comment below. Do the same if you happen to have any suggestions for future explorations of Liszt. In the meantime, however, thank you for watching another episode of Music Theory with GUIM.